Maya Kincaid stepped off the helicopter at Blackwater Training Facility with nothing but a standard-issue backpack and a look of determination that masked her growing doubts. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly around her, the facility's imposing. Concrete buildings rising from the sand like monuments to military precision. This was it. Special Rescue Operations Training. The most elite combat rescue program in the military. The same program that would see her fail every simulation for weeks before she pulled off the most daring rescue mission in modern military history. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The other candidates moved with practiced confidence, their custom gear gleaming in the harsh sunlight. Maya watched them compare their tactical loadouts, each specialized kit worth more than her entire year's salary. Her own equipment, standard issue with minimal modifications, felt suddenly inadequate as she adjusted the straps of her backpack. "Who brings basic gear to SRO training?" commented Ethan Reynolds, a muscular recruit from Texas whose deep voice carried across the assembly area. His remark drew knowing smiles from the group. "Hey, basic trainer. You sure you're in the right program?" Maya didn't respond. Throughout her career, she'd learned that actions spoke louder than words. Instead, she pulled out her digital tablet, its screen filled with detailed evacuation protocols and civilian protection strategies she'd been studying for years. While others boasted about their specialized equipment and physical prowess, she quietly observed the facility layout, mentally mapping exit routes and calculating distances between buildings. Commander Jackson, the lead instructor, barely acknowledged her during the introduction briefing. When he reached her name on the roster, he paused and frowned at his tablet. "Kincaid. Medical support transfer?" he asked, glancing up with a skeptical expression. "No, sir. Rescue operations candidate," Maya replied with quiet confidence. Jackson looked her up and down, taking in her standard gear and the obvious difference between her approach and everyone else's. "Right," he said, his tone making it clear he didn't expect her to last long. "We'll see." The first day's orientation made one thing crystal clear. Speed dominated Blackwater's philosophy. Swift extraction, rapid deployment, quick decisions was the mantra painted across the training hall in bold red letters. Everything about the program emphasized rushing into danger and getting out faster than the enemy could respond. Maya's careful, methodical approach to rescue operations, with its emphasis on thorough assessment and civilian safety protocols, suddenly seemed outdated. During equipment inspection, Sergeant Torres, the senior trainer, stopped at Maya's station. He picked up her standard-issue medical kit with visible disappointment. "This is all you brought?" he asked, earning more snickers from the watching recruits. "Where's your specialized extraction gear?" "Sir, I've optimized this kit for versatility and reliability. I can adapt it to multiple scenarios with minimal reconfiguration," Maya explained. "Versatility won't save lives when seconds count, Kincaid," Torres replied. "Speed is what matters here." The silence that followed was telling. Most recruits were recent graduates from tactical programs, their bodies hardened by years of physical training. Maya had spent her career in combat medical support, earning her spot through exceptional evacuation coordination and civilian protection scores during field assessments. But looking around at the faces staring at her, she realized her experience might not translate here. That evening, as she organized her gear in the barracks, Maya overheard Ethan talking to his friends. $20 says the medic washes out by Thursday," he said loudly. "She's probably here because someone in admin typed the wrong code on her transfer papers." The nicknames spread like wildfire. By the end of the week, everyone was calling her basic trainer. By the second week, even some instructors had picked it up. Maya endured it all silently, focusing instead on studying the facility layouts and memorizing every emergency protocol in the handbook. She had no way of knowing that in just a few weeks, That same attention to detail would be the difference between life and death for a dozen trapped diplomats, and that the standard procedures they all mocked would prove that sometimes methodical preparation beats flashy tactics when lives hang in the balance. But first, she had to survive being the misfit that everyone had already decided didn't belong. The simulation chamber loomed before them like a mechanical beast, a 3-story structure designed to replicate every imaginable rescue scenario from hostage situations to natural disasters. Inside, programmable environments could shift from urban warfare to collapsed buildings within minutes. 20 training lanes, each with different obstacles and challenges, awaited the candidates on that first evaluation day. "Candidates, you have 4 minutes per scenario," Commander Jackson announced through the loudspeaker. "Speed and extraction success are your metrics, both or neither." Maya checked her equipment, feeling the familiar weight of her medical kit and basic tactical gear. Around her, the other recruits activated specialized extraction tools and communication devices. The difference in approach was stark. While they relied on cutting-edge technology, Maya depended on fundamentals and adaptability. The buzzer sounded. Ethan Reynolds cleared the first 3 scenarios with impressive speed, his movements efficient and decisive as he extracted the training dummies representing civilians. His specialized gear allowed him to cut through barriers and bypass obstacles that others had to navigate around. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Maya worked methodically, carefully assessing each scenario before acting. Her approach was thorough, checking for secondary dangers, ensuring medical stability of the civilians, and creating secure extraction routes. Her rescues were textbook perfect in execution, but when the final buzzer sounded, she was still completing her 4th scenario while others had finished 6 or 7. "Time's up. All candidates cease operations," Jackson called out. During evaluation, Sergeant Torres walked the line, checking performance metrics on his tablet. When he reached Maya's station, he paused, studying the data. "Kincaid," he called, out loud enough for everyone to hear. "Your civilian survival rate is perfect. No casualties, no additional injuries during extraction. But you completed less than 60% of the assigned scenarios. That's a failure." Ethan's results showed 7 completed scenarios with 2 civilian casualties and several injuries during extraction. His speed, however, was exceptional. Reynolds, passing score. Good efficiency. As they walked back to the barracks, Maya heard the inevitable comments start. "Told you she couldn't handle it. Maybe they'll send her back to basic med training. Should have brought better gear, basic trainer." That evening, she found a notification on her tablet. It was her reassignment order. Effective immediately. She was being transferred to simulation programming and support. No second chance, no remedial training. Just a formal dismissal coded in bureaucratic language. Maya sat on her bunk, staring at the screen. 10 years of exemplary service, countless successful field evacuations. A lifetime dream ended because she was too methodical on an arbitrary timeline. "Hey, don't look so heartbroken," Ethan said, appearing at her bunk with a mock sympathetic smile. "At least now you can program our scenarios properly. Make them challenging enough for real operators." The laughter from his friend stung, but Maya closed her tablet quietly and placed it in her bag. She'd report to simulation programming tomorrow as ordered, but something inside her hardened. She might not be fast enough for their metrics, but she knew something they didn't. Speed meant nothing if you missed critical details that got civilians killed. In her personal journal that night, she wrote a single line: "Thoroughness over haste, always." The next morning, she reported to Chief Warrant Officer Diane Rodriguez in the Simulation Control Center. Rodriguez was a veteran in her late 40s, who'd been designing training scenarios longer than most of the candidates had been in the military. "So you're the washout they're sending me," Rodriguez said, studying Maya's file on her screen. "Heard you're too careful for the cowboys upstairs." "Yes, ma'am." Rodriguez examined her for a moment longer, then nodded slowly. "Well, Kincaid, maybe you'll learn something useful here. These hotshots with their fancy gear need someone who understands what really happens in the field when things go sideways." Maya managed a small smile. It was the first time anyone at Blackwater had suggested she might bring value to the program. As she began learning the complex simulation systems and scenario design protocols, Maya didn't realize that her new position would give her access to something invaluable: the detailed performance data of every candidate, including the classified simulation parameters that measured their decision-making under extreme pressure. The programming center was located in the basement level of the main training building, a sprawling network of control rooms and monitoring stations that observed every aspect of the training scenarios. Floor-to-ceiling screens displayed live feeds from simulation chambers, while technicians adjusted parameters in real time. Maya's assignment placed her at the heart of the operation, where scenarios were created, tested, and evaluated. "First rule of simulation design," Rodriguez explained on Maya's first day, "is that we're not testing what they think we're testing." "Ma'am," Maya asked, confused. Rodriguez gestured to the bank of monitors, showing candidates rushing through various rescue scenarios. "They think we're measuring speed and extraction numbers. What we're really measuring is decision quality under pressure. The problem is, the scoring system upstairs has gotten corrupted. Jackson and his team have become obsessed with metrics that look good on paper." Maya spent her first week learning the simulation control systems, how scenarios were constructed, how environmental variables could be adjusted, and how candidate performance was tracked through dozens of subtle measurements. The technology was impressive, with AI-driven decision trees that could adapt to candidate choices in real time, creating truly unpredictable training environments. While the other simulation technicians treated her with the casual indifference reserved for washouts, Maya immersed herself in understanding every aspect of the system. She stayed late, arrived early, and used her lunch breaks to study the scenario construction manuals that others ignored. Rodriguez noticed her dedication and gradually assigned her more responsibilities. "Kincaid, I need you to run the environmental controls for Chamber 3 this afternoon," she said one day in Maya's second week. "Try not to make it too easy on Reynolds and his crew." The request surprised Maya. Environmental controls were usually handled by senior technicians. "Yes, ma'am, I'll handle it." That afternoon, as Ethan and his team entered Chamber 3 for a standard extraction drill, Maya sat at the control console monitoring their progress. The scenario involved a simulated embassy evacuation during civil unrest, a straightforward exercise they'd all run before. As Ethan's team moved through the scenario with their usual speed-focused approach, Maya noticed something troubling. They were bypassing standard security protocols, leaving potential threats unchecked in their rush to extract the diplomatic personnel. According to the training parameters, this should have triggered negative consequences, but the system had been adjusted to prioritize speed over thoroughness. After the exercise, when Ethan's team received glowing performance reviews despite their shortcuts, Maya approached Rodriguez with her observations. "Ma'am, I noticed Team 3 skipped the secondary security sweep in the embassy scenario. In a real situation that would leave the extraction team vulnerable to ambush." Rodriguez studied her with new interest. "You noticed that, did you? What else did you see?" Maya hesitated only briefly before continuing. "They left 3 rooms unchecked, bypassed the communications hub completely, and failed to secure their exit route. In a real-world scenario, they would have likely lost half their team and several civilians. Yet they received the highest score of the day," Rodriguez noted. "Why do you think that is?" "Because the scoring system values time over thoroughness," Maya replied, It's measuring the wrong things. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Precisely. And this is why we keep producing rescue teams that look impressive in training, but make critical mistakes in the field. She pulled up a classified file on her terminal. What I'm about to show you doesn't leave this room. The file contained after-action reports from recent rescue operations conducted by Blackwater graduates. The results were sobering. Several high-profile missions had resulted in preventable civilian casualties because extraction teams had prioritized speed over security protocols. One particularly disturbing report detailed how a team had left behind 2 civilians hidden in a panic room because they hadn't done a thorough room-by-room search. This is why I pay attention to candidates like you, Rodriguez said quietly. Because sometimes the people who don't fit the program are the ones who see what everyone else is missing. Over the next few weeks, Maya's role in the simulation center expanded significantly. Rodriguez assigned her to analyze candidate performance data, looking beyond the official metrics to evaluate their real-world readiness. Maya created a comprehensive spreadsheet tracking decision quality, thoroughness, and civilian safety measures, all the factors that the official scoring system undervalued. The patterns were clear and disturbing. The highest-ranked candidates, including Ethan Reynolds, consistently sacrificed thoroughness for speed. They looked impressive on paper, but routinely made decisions that would endanger civilians in real operations. Maya compiled her findings into a detailed report titled Extraction Protocols, Balancing Efficiency and Security. It was methodical, data-driven, and impossible to dismiss, exactly the kind of thorough work that had gotten her removed from the program in the first place. What do you expect me to do with this? Rodriguez asked when Maya presented her findings. I thought, perhaps Commander Jackson should see it, Maya suggested. The data clearly shows. Jackson won't care, Rodriguez interrupted. He's built his reputation on producing the fastest extraction teams in the service. Your report challenges the fundamental premise of his program. Maya's shoulders slumped slightly. Then why did you let me complete it? Because someone needs to document what's happening here, Rodriguez replied. And because someday, someone who matters might actually listen. That someone arrived sooner than either of them expected. 3 weeks into Maya's assignment, the facility received notice of a high-profile inspection. Admiral Helena Chun, the head of Joint Special Operations Command, would be visiting Blackwater to evaluate the rescue program personally. The entire facility went into preparation mode, with Commander Jackson ordering extra training sessions and carefully choreographed demonstrations. The day before the Admiral's arrival, Maya was summoned to Jackson's office. She found him reviewing simulation data with Sergeant Torres, both looking unusually concerned. Kincaid, Jackson said without preamble. Rodriguez tells me you've been analyzing our simulation parameters. Maya stood at attention. Yes, sir. She says you have concerns about our evaluation metrics. This was unexpected. Maya had assumed Rodriguez would keep her report confidential. I've identified some potential areas for improvement in how we measure candidate readiness, sir. Jackson and Torres exchanged glances. Admiral Chun has requested a complete breakdown of our evaluation methodology, Jackson explained. Apparently, there have been some incidents with recent graduates. Maya maintained her professional demeanor, but internally, she understood what had happened. The mission failures documented in Rodriguez's classified files had caught the attention of senior command. We need you to prepare a presentation of the standard evaluation protocols, Torres added. Just the official metrics, nothing else. Understood? Yes, sir, Maya replied, recognizing the implied instruction to hide her findings. As she left Jackson's office, Rodriguez was waiting in the hallway. They asked you to prepare the standard briefing? Maya nodded. Good, Rodriguez said with a small smile. I've already sent your full report to Admiral Chun directly. She specifically requested it after reviewing the recent mission failures. Maya stared at her in shock. You what? I told you someone who matters might listen someday, Rodriguez said. I just helped speed up the timeline a bit. That night, as Maya prepared the sanitized presentation Jackson had requested, she couldn't help feeling that something significant was about to change. Her careful, methodical approach, the very quality that had gotten her removed from the program, might finally be recognized for its value. What she couldn't know was that the next day would bring a crisis that would test everything she believed about rescue operations, and that her thoroughness would soon save lives that speed alone could never reach. The morning of Admiral Chun's inspection dawned with unusual activity throughout the Blackwater facility. Security teams swept the grounds, training areas were meticulously prepared, and candidates received last-minute coaching on the demonstration scenarios. Maya reported to the Simulation Control Center early, finding Rodriguez already at her station. Admiral Chun arrives at 0900, Rodriguez informed her. Jackson has a full day of demonstrations planned, all carefully selected to showcase speed, metrics, and ignore the problems we've documented. Maya nodded, feeling the weight of what was coming. Her report challenging the program's fundamental approach was in the Admiral's hands, while she had been tasked with presenting a sanitized version of the evaluation system. The contradiction created a knot of tension in her stomach. What should I do if the Admiral asks about my report? Maya asked. Rodriguez considered this. Tell the truth, Kincaid. That's what got you here in the first place. At precisely 0900, Admiral Helena Chun arrived with her staff of senior officers. She was a compact woman in her late 50s with short gray hair and the focused intensity of someone who had spent decades in special operations before moving to command positions. Maya watched on the control room monitors as Jackson greeted the Admiral with rehearsed precision. Welcome to Blackwater, Admiral, Jackson said. We've prepared a comprehensive demonstration of our elite rescue capabilities. I'm more interested in your evaluation methodologies. Commander, Chun replied, her voice carrying clearly through the facility's monitoring system, particularly in light of the Cairo and Manila incidents. Jackson's smile faltered slightly. Of course, Admiral. We have a full briefing prepared on our training protocols. The morning proceeded according to Jackson's carefully orchestrated plan. Ethan Reynolds and the top-ranked candidates performed a series of rescue scenarios, extracting training dummies from simulated danger zones with impressive speed. Their times were exceptional, their movements confident. As you can see, Admiral, Jackson explained during a viewing break, our candidates can execute extractions in half the time of standard rescue teams. Chun watched without comment, her expression revealing nothing. At 1100, Maya was summoned to the main briefing room to present the evaluation methodology. As she entered, she found Admiral Chun and her staff seated at the conference table with Jackson, Torres, and Rodriguez. All eyes turned to her as she approached the presentation screen. Specialist Kincaid, Jackson introduced her. Our simulation programming specialist will explain our evaluation metrics. Maya connected her tablet to the display and brought up the standard presentation she'd prepared. Good morning, Admiral. Blackwater's evaluation system measures candidate performance across 3 primary metrics: extraction speed, obstacle navigation, efficiency, and civilian retrieval numbers. She proceeded through the official methodology, explaining how candidates were scored, based primarily on time to completion and number of civilians extracted. As she spoke, she could feel Admiral Chun studying her intently. When the presentation concluded, Chun asked the question Maya had been dreading. Specialist Kincaid, I received a different report yesterday analyzing Blackwater's evaluation system. Are you familiar with this document? Jackson and Torres tensed visibly. Maya took a deep breath. Yes, Admiral. I authored that report. And yet it contains conclusions significantly different from what you've just presented. This presentation reflects the official evaluation methodology, Admiral, Maya explained carefully. My report addresses potential gaps in that methodology based on performance data analysis. Chun nodded, seemingly satisfied with the diplomatic response. I'd like to discuss your findings in more detail, Specialist. Perhaps after the afternoon demonstrations. The tension in the room was palpable as Chun and her staff departed for lunch. The moment the door closed, Jackson turned to Maya, his face flushed with anger. What report is she talking about, Kincaid? Rodriguez stepped in before Maya could respond. A comprehensive analysis of candidate performance that I authorized as part of our ongoing system improvement. You had no authority to send unauthorized reports to JSOC, Jackson snapped. Actually, Commander, as Chief Warrant Officer in charge of simulation systems, ensuring accurate evaluation falls directly within my purview, Rodriguez replied calmly. If you'd like to discuss chain of command, we can certainly do that with the Admiral present. The standoff was interrupted by an alert on all their devices simultaneously. A priority message from facility security. Emergency protocols activated. All personnel report to stations. Jackson's device rang immediately. As he answered, his expression shifted from anger to concern. Understood. Initiating lockdown procedures. He turned to the others. There's been an incident at the Richardson Embassy in Kazakhstan. Protesters have breached the compound and diplomatic personnel are trapped inside. JSOC is activating response teams. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't a drill or demonstration. This was exactly the kind of real-world crisis their program was designed to address. Admiral Chun is requesting access to our live simulation capabilities to model response scenarios, Jackson continued. All simulation staff report to the control center immediately. As they hurried to the control center, Maya's mind raced through what she knew about the Richardson Embassy. Unlike the generic facilities used in their training scenarios, this was a real location with unique challenges and complexities. The control center was already bustling with activity when they arrived. Admiral Chun stood at the central command station, reviewing satellite imagery of the embassy compound. The situation is deteriorating rapidly, Chun informed them as they entered. 12 diplomatic personnel plus local staff are barricaded in the secure area, but protesters have started fires in the main building. Kazakh security forces are overwhelmed and requesting assistance. Maya studied the satellite feeds, noting details that immediately concerned her. The embassy's layout was unusual, a converted, historical building with multiple annexes and underground sections, not visible from above. Standard extraction approaches would be dangerously inadequate. Commander Jackson, Chun continued, I need your team to run simulation models for potential extraction scenarios. We need to identify the optimal approach before deploying rescue teams, Jackson nodded confidently. We'll have optimal extraction paths within the hour, Admiral. You have 30 minutes, Chun corrected him. Lives are at stake. As the simulation team scrambled to create a model of the Richardson Embassy, Maya stood back, watching with growing concern. They were building the simulation using standard templates, approaching this unique facility as if it were like any other embassy they'd trained for. Sir, she said, addressing Jackson, the Richardson Embassy has several unique features that aren't reflected in our standard models. Jackson barely glanced at her. Kincaid, unless you have specific intelligence on this facility, let the team work. Maya hesitated. She did have specific knowledge, but not from intelligence briefings. During her time in medical support, she had reviewed emergency evacuation protocols for diplomatic facilities worldwide, a thoroughness that her former colleagues had often deemed excessive. Making a decision, she turned to Rodriguez instead. Ma'am, I need access to the architectural database. I believe I can help. Rodriguez studied her for a moment, then nodded. Terminal 3 is open. Maya quickly logged into the system and searched for the Richardson Embassy's emergency plans. To her relief, the files were available in the diplomatic security database. As she pulled up the complete architectural schematics, she realized her concerns were justified. The embassy had been renovated 3 times in the past decade, with each renovation adding complexity to its layout. Most critically, there was an underground tunnel system connecting the main building to an auxiliary facility 400 meters away, a potential extraction route that wouldn't be visible on satellite imagery. By the time Jackson's team had their simulation ready 20 minutes later, Maya had compiled a comprehensive analysis of the facility's vulnerabilities and escape routes. But when she approached the main planning table, Jackson waved her away. "We have our approach mapped, Admiral," he announced, displaying a 3D model of the embassy. "We recommend a rooftop extraction using fast rope deployment from helicopters. Estimated time to complete extraction, 12 minutes. Admiral Chun studied the proposal with a frown. "The diplomatic security officer reports fires on the upper floors. Roof access may be compromised." "Then we go in through the main entrance," Jackson countered. "Quick breach, secure the diplomats, extract through the same route. 15 minutes total." Maya couldn't remain silent any longer. "Sir, both approaches expose the extraction team and civilians to unnecessary risk." All eyes turned to her. Jackson's expression darkened. "Kincaid, you're out of line." "Let her speak," Admiral Chun ordered. Maya stepped forward, connecting her tablet to the main display. "The Richardson Embassy has a secondary extraction route that isn't visible on standard schematics. There's an underground tunnel system connecting the main building to an auxiliary facility outside the protest perimeter." She displayed the architectural plans she'd found, highlighting the tunnel system and its access points. "According to these plans, the access point is located in the embassy's archive room, behind a reinforced door designed to look like a storage cabinet." Admiral Chun studied the plans with new interest. "Can you verify this is current?" "Yes, Admiral. The plans were updated after the last renovation 18 months ago. I've also cross-referenced with the emergency evacuation protocols filed with diplomatic security." Chun turned to her communications officer. "Contact the senior diplomat. Inside. Ask about the archive room and tunnel access." The next few minutes passed in tense silence as they awaited confirmation. Finally, the officer reported back. "Sir, Ambassador Harlow confirms the tunnel exists and they have access to the entrance. However, they cannot proceed without security escort. The tunnel hasn't been used in years, and they're uncertain of its condition." Chun made her decision quickly. "We need a team that can navigate that tunnel safely and extract all personnel." She turned to Jackson. "Commander, who is your best candidate for this type of operation?" Jackson didn't hesitate. "Reynolds is our top-ranked trainee, Admiral. He's completed every extraction scenario with exceptional times." The control center shifted into deployment mode, with both teams moving to the transport area for final equipment check. Maya found herself temporarily forgotten in the rush of activity, her role in the planning phase seemingly complete. Rodriguez appeared at her side. "You should be with them," she said quietly. "I failed the program," Maya reminded her. "You failed a program designed to produce the wrong kind of rescue operators," Rodriguez countered. "This situation needs exactly what you bring to the table: thorough assessment, careful planning, and the ability to adapt to changing conditions." Maya shook her head. "Commander Jackson would never approve my participation." "Admiral Chun might," Rodriguez suggested. "Especially if she understood that you know those tunnel systems better than anyone on this base right now." The idea was tempting, but seemed impossible. Maya had spent weeks being told she wasn't fast enough, wasn't good enough to be part of the elite rescue teams. And yet, as she looked at the satellite imagery of the embassy compound, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still being missed. Some critical detail that could mean the difference between success and failure. Her thoughts were interrupted by new alarms blaring throughout the control center. The main display showed a massive new fire erupting in the embassy's west wing, directly above a critical section of the tunnel system. Structural integrity of Section 2 is now compromised, announced the engineering analyst. Thermal imaging shows temperatures exceeding design tolerances. Maya studied the data with growing horror. The tunnel route they had planned for Harper's team now passed directly beneath a potential collapse zone. If the team proceeded as briefed, they could be trapped or killed by falling debris. She grabbed her tablet and rushed to the transport area, pushing past security personnel who tried to stop her. In the hangar, both teams were doing final equipment checks as the transport helicopters spun up their rotors. "Lieutenant Harper," Maya called out, racing across the tarmac. "Your route is compromised." Harper turned, surprised to see Maya running toward her. "Kincaid, what are you doing here?" Maya displayed the thermal imaging on her tablet. "New fire in the west wing. It's directly above Section 2 of the tunnel. The heat is exceeding structural tolerances. If you proceed as planned, your team could be caught in a collapse." Harper studied the data with concern. "Is there an alternative route?" "Yes." Maya quickly pulled up the blueprint. "There's a maintenance bypass that connects Sections 1 and 3. It's narrower and will slow your progress, but it avoids the danger zone completely." Harper nodded decisively. "Show me exactly." As Maya detailed the alternative route, she became aware of Commander Jackson approaching rapidly from across the hangar. "Kincaid," he shouted. "You are not authorized to be in the deployment area. Security." Two security officers moved to intercept Maya, but a new voice cut through the chaos. "Stand down," ordered Admiral Chun, who had entered the hangar unnoticed. During the commotion, "Specialist Kincaid, explain your presence." Maya stood at attention. "Admiral, critical new information about tunnel structural integrity. The planned route passes beneath a major fire zone. I was informing Lieutenant Harper of a safer alternative." Chun looked to Harper for confirmation. "Lieutenant?" "The information appears accurate, Admiral," Harper confirmed. "Kincaid has identified a bypass route that avoids the danger zone." Chun made a quick decision. "Specialist Kincaid, you're now attached to Lieutenant Harper's team as technical advisor. Your knowledge of that tunnel system is too valuable to leave behind." Jackson stepped forward in protest. "Admiral, Kincaid failed the basic qualification standards. She's not cleared for field operations." "This isn't a training exercise, Commander," Chun replied coldly. "This is a real rescue mission with 12 diplomatic lives at stake. I need the best people for each aspect of the operation, and right now Kincaid knows those tunnels better than anyone else here." Maya stood frozen in shock. After weeks of being dismissed as too slow, too careful, too methodical, she was suddenly being deployed on the most critical rescue mission of her career. "Gear up, Specialist," Harper ordered, breaking Maya's stunned silence. "We move in 5 minutes." One of Harper's team members, a tall woman named Santiago, handed Maya a tactical vest and helmet. "Looks like basic trainer is joining the real operators today," she said, but her tone lacked the mockery Maya had grown accustomed to. Instead, there was a grudging respect. As Maya quickly donned the equipment, Reynolds approached from across the hangar. His expression was difficult to read, part disbelief, part anger, part concern. "You really think you belong on this mission, Kincaid?" he asked quietly. Maya met his gaze steadily. "No one belongs on this mission, Reynolds. But those diplomats need help, and I know those tunnels." He studied her for a moment longer, then nodded almost imperceptibly. "Don't slow them down." "I won't," Maya promised, though they both knew her careful approach would inevitably take more time than his would have. Deployment authorization came through moments later. Reynolds' team boarded the first helicopter, while Harper's team, now including Maya, took the second. As the rotors accelerated to lift-off speed, Maya found herself seated between Santiago and a compact, muscular operator named Diaz. "So, basic trainer," Diaz said over the comm system as the helicopter lifted off. "Tell us what we're really facing in those tunnels." Maya pulled up the blueprint on her tablet, which she'd loaded with every scrap of information about the Richardson embassy she could find. The tunnel system was built in 1972 as a Cold War escape route. It runs approximately 450 meters from the main building to the auxiliary facility, with 2 additional exit points. She highlighted the critical areas on the blueprint. Section 1 is the entrance from the archive room, reinforced concrete, likely still intact despite the fires above. Section 2 is now compromised due to the fire in the west wing. We'll bypass it using this maintenance tunnel. Section 3 has previous water damage that may have weakened the structure. The exit we're targeting is here, through the adjacent commercial building. Harper leaned forward from her seat. "What about atmospheric conditions? With fires above, are we looking at smoke infiltration? Oxygen depletion?" "Possible in sections 1 and 2, Maya confirmed. "The tunnel has limited ventilation systems. That may have been damaged. I recommend breathing apparatus until we verify air quality." The helicopter banked sharply as it adjusted course, the embassy compound now visible in the distance. Even from several kilometers away, the smoke plume was clearly visible against the sky. "Reynolds' team will attempt entry through the east. Entrance if conditions permit," Harper informed them. "Our mission is the tunnel extraction, regardless of their success or failure. Primary objective is securing all diplomatic personnel." Maya noted the difference in Harper's briefing style, compared to what she'd observed from Reynolds. Where he emphasized speed and efficiency, Harper focused on thoroughness and contingency planning. Exactly the approach Maya had advocated during her brief time in the program. As they approached the landing zone, a clear area approximately 1 kilometer from the embassy compound, Maya felt a complex mix of emotions. Fear, certainly, but also a strange sense of validation. The very qualities that had gotten her removed from the program were now considered essential for this mission's success. The helicopter touched down with a jolt, and Harper's team disembarked. With practiced efficiency, Maya followed, staying close to Santiago as they moved toward the waiting ground transport. Reynolds' team was already moving toward the embassy's east entrance, their approach visible on the tactical display each operator carried. "Harper team, proceed to tunnel entrance point Alpha," came the command from the mobile operations center that had been established near the landing zone. Reynolds' team reports heavy fire at main entrance. They're attempting alternative access via service entrance. The ground transport delivered Harper's team to a side street, approximately 200 meters from the embassy's perimeter. From here, they would proceed on foot to a service entrance that would give them access to the basement level and, eventually, the archive room where the tunnel began. As they exited the vehicle, the reality of the situation became immediately apparent. The embassy compound was partially engulfed in flames, with thick black smoke billowing from multiple windows. The sound of the protest crowd was a constant roar in the background, punctuated by occasional explosions as something flammable ignited inside the building. "Reynolds' team reports they are unable to penetrate the main building," announced the command center. "Too much fire, structural integrity compromised. Harper team, you are now the primary extraction option. Proceed with tunnel approach." Harper gathered her team for a final briefing. "Change of plans. We're now the only way those diplomats are getting out. Kincaid, your point on navigation. Santiago Diaz, your security. Lee and Alvarez, you handle medical and diplomat management. I'll coordinate with command. Questions?" There were none. Despite the added pressure of being the sole extraction option, Harper's team maintained the calm, methodical approach that Maya had noted in their training data. They moved toward the embassy's service entrance, encountering no resistance from the protesters who were concentrated on the opposite side of the compound. The door was locked but yielded quickly to the breaching tools Diaz carried. Inside, the basement level was hazy with smoke, but not yet directly threatened by the fires above. The team moved efficiently through the maintenance corridors, following Maya's directions toward the archive room. "Air quality declining," reported Lee, monitoring the atmospheric sensors. "Recommend switching to breathing apparatus." Harper gave the order, and the team donned their oxygen masks. The added equipment slowed their movement slightly, but ensured they wouldn't be overcome by smoke or carbon monoxide. As they approached the archive room, Maya consulted her blueprint once more. Access should be through a reinforced door disguised as a storage cabinet. East wall, between the second and third bookshelves. The archive room, when they reached it, was filled with smoke, visibility reduced to mere meters. Santiago and Diaz swept the space with practiced efficiency, confirming it was secure before the rest of the team entered. "East wall," Maya directed, moving carefully between the rows of filing cabinets and bookshelves. "Here, this cabinet." What appeared to be an ordinary storage unit was actually a hardened security door, designed to blend perfectly with the surrounding furniture. A hidden biometric scanner was built into what looked like a decorative panel. "We need authorized access," Maya realized. The diplomats would have had to unlock this from the inside. Harper checked her tactical display. No contact from the diplomats since they reported moving to the archive room. They should be here. The implication was clear and troubling. If the diplomats had made it to the archive room, as reported, they should have either been waiting or left some indication of their passage. Could they have proceeded into the tunnel without waiting for extraction? Santiago suggested. Possible, Maya acknowledged, but unlikely without security escort. Protocol would have them wait for assistance. Harper made a quick decision. Diaz, breach the door. We need to verify if they've passed through. Diaz examined the hidden door carefully. This is a serious security system. Breaching it will take time, could potentially trigger alarms. "Do it," Harper ordered. "Time is critical." As Diaz worked on the breach, Maya studied the room more carefully. Something wasn't adding up. If the diplomats had reached this room as reported, there should be signs of their presence. Personal items, communications equipment, something. "Lieutenant," she said, moving to Harper's side, "I don't think they made it here." Harper frowned. Behind her oxygen mask. "Last communication placed them en route to the archive room." "But there's no evidence they arrived," Maya pointed out. "No equipment, no personal effects. The smoke wasn't this bad 30 minutes ago when they reported. Moving here, they should have left some trace." Harper considered this. Where else could they have gone? Maya pulled up the embassy blueprint again, studying the layout with fresh eyes. "There's a secondary secure area in the East Wing, the communications center. It has reinforced walls and dedicated ventilation. If they couldn't reach the archive, room due to fire spread, that's where they might have diverted to." "East Wing puts them directly in Reynolds' approach zone," Harper noted. But his team couldn't penetrate the building. A new alert came through their communications system. "All teams be advised. Structural sensors indicate imminent collapse in the West Wing. Repeat, imminent collapse in West Wing." The warning confirmed Maya's earlier concerns about the tunnel's structural integrity. If they had proceeded with the original route, they would have been directly beneath the collapse zone. Harper made her decision. "Diaz, suspend breach attempt. We're repositioning to the East Wing Communications Center." As the team prepared to move, a massive rumbling shook the building. The West Wing was beginning to collapse, exactly as the sensors had predicted. "Move," Harper ordered, leading them back the way they had come. Kincaid, fastest route to the communications center. Maya consulted her blueprint as they ran. Through the main corridor, Up the service stairs to level 2, then across to the East Wing. The route would take them closer to the areas affected by fire, but it was their only option if the diplomats had indeed diverted to the communications center. As they emerged from the basement level into the main corridor, they encountered their first real obstacle. The hallway ahead was partially blocked by debris from a ceiling collapse, with smoke so thick it was barely penetrable even with their tactical lights. "Single file for the narrow section," Harper ordered. "Kincaid, stay close." The team proceeded carefully through the obstacle, the heat from nearby fires becoming increasingly intense. Maya felt sweat running down her back beneath the tactical vest, her breathing measured and controlled through the oxygen mask. Once past the debris field, they reached the service stairs and began their ascent to the second level. The stairwell was relatively clear of smoke thanks to its enclosed design, but the sounds of the building under stress, creaking metal, cracking concrete, the distant roar of flames, created an ominous atmosphere. "Reynolds team, report status." Harper requested over the COM system. "Still attempting to breach east entrance," came Reynolds' reply, his voice tight with frustration. "Heavy debris blocking access, making minimal progress." "We're proceeding to communications center," Harper informed him. "Intelligence suggests diplomats may have diverted there instead of the archive room." There was a brief pause before Reynolds responded, "Understood. We'll continue breach attempt and meet you there if successful." As Harper's team reached the second level and moved toward the East Wing, Maya's mind was working continuously, processing everything she knew about the embassy's layout and systems. Something about the situation still bothered her, a detail she couldn't quite place, but that seemed important. The communications center was located at the end of a long corridor that connected the central portion of the embassy to the East Wing. As they approached, Maya suddenly remembered what had been nagging at her. "Lieutenant," she said urgently to Harper, "the communications center has a security protocol that seals it completely during emergencies. If the diplomats are inside, they may have activated the lockdown." "Meaning?" Harper asked, not breaking stride. "Meaning we can't get in from this side if it's sealed," Maya explained. "The only override is from the security control room in the basement, which we just left." Harper halted the team, considering this new information. "Options?" Maya thought quickly. "The communications center has an emergency exit that leads to a dedicated evacuation stairwell. It emerges near the east entrance that Reynolds' team is trying to breach. So if we can't get in from here, and Reynolds can't get in from there," Harper began, "we need to coordinate," Maya finished. "If we can reach the bottom of that evacuation stairwell from our side, and the diplomats can be convinced to unseal the communications center and use their emergency exit, we can meet them halfway." Harper nodded and immediately contacted Reynolds. "New plan. We believe diplomats are in communications center under security lockdown. We're heading to intercept at the evacuation stairwell. If you breach the east entrance, proceed to the same location from your side." "Copy that," Reynolds replied. "We've made progress on the breach. Estimate 10 minutes to entry." Maya led the team back down the corridor, taking a different turn that would bring them to the evacuation stairwell access point. As they moved, the building shuddered again, another section beginning to fail under the stress of the fire. "We need to establish communication with the diplomats," Harper said as they ran. "If they're in lockdown, they need to know we're here and where to meet us." "The communication center has a dedicated emergency frequency," Maya recalled from her study of the embassy protocols. "If their systems are still operational, we can reach them that way." Harper relayed this information to the command center, which immediately began broadcasting on the emergency channel. The team reached the access point to the evacuation stairwell, a heavy security door that required authorization. "Diaz," Harper ordered, and the specialist immediately began working on the breach. As they waited, Maya's tablet pinged with an incoming message. It was from the command center. Contact established with diplomats. Confirmed in communication center under lockdown. 12 personnel, 2 with minor injuries. They report oxygen levels falling due to ventilation system damage. Harper read the message over Maya's shoulder. Tell them to prepare for evacuation. Via their emergency exit, we'll meet them in the stairwell. Diaz completed the breach, and the security door swung open to reveal the evacuation stairwell, a narrow, reinforced concrete structure designed specifically for emergency use. Unlike the main building, it was relatively clear of smoke, though the air was stale and hot. We go up to level 2 landing, Maya directed. That's where the communication center emergency exit connects to the stairwell. She gestured toward Maya. Specialist Kincaid's analysis identified this exact issue weeks ago, but her concerns were dismissed because she didn't meet your time-based metrics. The command center fell silent, the tension palpable as Jackson struggled to formulate a response. Maya stood uncomfortably in the center of a confrontation that had been building since her removal from the program. With respect, Admiral, Jackson finally said, Kincaid failed to complete the required number of scenarios within the allotted time. That's an objective standard we apply to all candidates. An objective standard that nearly got 12 diplomats killed today, Chun countered. If Kincaid hadn't identified the structural weaknesses in the tunnel system, if she hadn't found alternative exit routes when protesters gathered at the primary extraction point, if she hadn't remembered the communications center security protocols, where would those diplomats be now? Jackson had no answer. Reynolds looked at the floor, while Harper watched the exchange with quiet attention. I'm implementing immediate changes to the Special Rescue Operations Program, Chun announced. First, all evaluation metrics will be revised to balance speed with thoroughness and decision quality. Second, scenario design will incorporate more unpredictable elements to test adaptability rather than rote execution. And third, she turned to Maya, Specialist Kincaid will be reinstated to the program and will assist in developing new training protocols that emphasize comprehensive mission success over arbitrary time metrics. The announcement landed like a thunderbolt. Maya felt her knees weaken slightly but maintained her composure. Jackson's expression was unreadable, though a muscle twitched in his jaw. Admiral, he began, clearly preparing to object. This isn't a suggestion, Commander, Chun interrupted. It's a direct order. The Richardson Embassy rescue will be studied as a textbook example of why thorough intelligence analysis and adaptable planning save lives when standard approaches fail. Kincaid demonstrated exactly the qualities we need in elite rescue operators, not just speed, but judgment under pressure. As the implications of Chun's decision rippled through the command center, Ambassador Harlow entered, having completed her medical check. Her presence immediately shifted the atmosphere, a living reminder of what was truly at stake in these operational decisions. Admiral Chun, Harlow said, approaching the group. I understand you were the one who authorized our extraction. On behalf of all 12 members of the diplomatic mission, thank you. Chun nodded acknowledgement. The credit belongs to the operators who executed the mission, Ambassador. Particularly Lieutenant Harper's team and Specialist Kincaid, whose knowledge of your facility proved invaluable. Harlow turned to Maya with genuine gratitude. Yes, we've already heard about your role, Specialist. Our security officer was particularly impressed with your knowledge of alternative exit routes that weren't even in our current protocols. Just doing my job, Ambassador, Maya replied, the phrase feeling insufficient for the emotion of the moment. Well, your job saved 12 American lives today, Harlow said firmly. That deserves more than modesty. As the debriefing continued, Maya found herself increasingly involved in the operational analysis. Her perspective was no longer dismissed but actively sought, particularly regarding the decision points that had proven critical to the mission's success. Later, as teams prepared to return to Blackwater, Reynolds approached Maya in the equipment area where she was returning her borrowed tactical gear. "Kincaid," he said, his usual confidence tempered by something new, perhaps humility. "I owe you an apology." Maya looked up, surprised. "For what exactly?" "For dismissing you. For the nickname. For assuming that because you weren't fast, you weren't good." He paused, seemingly struggling with the admission. "When my team couldn't breach the embassy, when all our specialized equipment and speed-focused training couldn't get us through that door, I realized that sometimes being fast isn't enough." It was more acknowledgement than Maya had expected from someone whose identity had been so wrapped up in being the best, the fastest, the most capable. "We're trained for different aspects of the same mission, Reynolds," she replied. "Your approach has value in certain situations, mine in others." "That's a generous way of putting it," he said with a wry smile. "Considering I failed and you succeeded." "This time," Maya corrected him. "Next time, conditions might favor your approach. The point isn't that one method is always better than the other. It's that we need both, adapted to the specific challenges we face." Reynolds considered this, then nodded slowly. "Maybe that's what they should be teaching us." "Maybe they will now," Maya suggested. The return to Blackwater 2 days later felt like entering a different facility. Word of the successful rescue had preceded them, along with Admiral Chun's directive to revise the training program. Maya found herself moved from the basement simulation center to a new office near the training command, with a placard reading, "Training Methodology Specialist" on the door. Rodriguez visited her there on her first day back. "Quite a promotion," she observed, looking around the office with approval. "From washout to program reformer in less than a month." Maya smiled at her mentor. "I couldn't have done it without your support, ma'am. You were the only one who took my analysis seriously. I recognized the value of thorough work when everyone else was blinded by flashy metrics," Rodriguez replied. "But you're the one who proved it where it counted, in the field, with actual lives at stake." In the weeks that followed, Maya immersed herself in redesigning the training protocols. She worked closely with both Harper and Reynolds, incorporating the strengths of each approach into a more balanced methodology. Speed remained important, but it was now evaluated alongside decision quality, thoroughness of assessment, and adaptability to changing conditions. The new training scenarios reflected this balanced approach. Rather than simply timing candidates through predetermined exercises, they now faced unpredictable changes mid-scenario that tested their ability to adapt and recalibrate their approach. Some situations rewarded speed, others demanded careful assessment, just like in real operations. Commander Jackson remained skeptical initially, his decades of experience built around the speed-focused methodology he had helped develop. But even he couldn't argue with the results when the first class of candidates, trained under the new protocols, began showing improved performance in complex scenarios. "I still believe in speed, Kincaid," he told her after observing a particularly challenging exercise. "In many situations, minutes or seconds make the difference between success and failure." "I agree, sir," Maya replied. "That's why we haven't eliminated speed metrics. We've just put them in proper context alongside other critical factors." Jackson nodded grudgingly. "Your approach has merit. I should have given it more consideration when you were a candidate." It wasn't quite an apology, but from Jackson, it was significant acknowledgement. 3 months after the Kazakhstan rescue, Maya stood before a new class of candidates on their first day at Blackwater. The training hall no longer bore the slogan, "Swift extraction, rapid deployment, quick decisions." In its place was a new motto, "Right approach, right time, every time." "Welcome to Special Rescue Operations Training," Maya began. "My name is Senior Instructor Kincaid, and I'm here to challenge everything you think you know about rescue operations." The candidates, fresh-faced and eager, watched her with the slightly skeptical expression of those not yet tested by real crisis. "Some of you have heard about the Richardson Embassy rescue," she continued. It's become something of a legend. The failed candidate who ended up leading the most successful diplomatic extraction in recent history. But that's not the real story. Maya paced slowly before them, making eye contact with each candidate. The real story isn't about one person being right and everyone else being wrong. It's about the danger of rigid thinking, of believing there's only one way to measure success. She activated the large display screen, showing video from the embassy rescue alongside training footage from Blackwater. For years, this program emphasized speed above all else. Candidates who could complete scenarios quickly were celebrated, while those who took time for thorough assessment were eliminated. I was one of those eliminated candidates. The room was silent, everyone intently focused on her words. But when the Richardson embassy was burning, when 12 American diplomats were trapped with protesters closing in, when standard approaches failed, it wasn't speed that saved them. It was knowledge of alternative routes, understanding of structural vulnerabilities, awareness of security protocols that weren't in the standard briefing. Maya let that sink in before continuing. You're here because you want to be elite rescue operators. You want to be the ones who go in when everyone else is running out. That's honorable. But being elite isn't about being the fastest or having the fanciest equipment. It's about having the judgment to know when to move quickly and when to move carefully. It's about adapting your approach to the specific challenges you face, not applying the same solution to every problem. She noticed one candidate in particular, a young woman with standard issue gear amid others with specialized equipment, watching her with particular intensity. Maya recognized herself in that attentive gaze. In this program, you will learn both approaches. You will train for speed when speed is called for. You will practice thoroughness when lives depend on careful assessment. And most importantly, you will develop the judgment to know which approach is right for each situation. As the orientation continued, Maya introduced the revised training methodology, explaining how candidates would be evaluated on multiple dimensions rather than primarily on speed. Some looked relieved, others concerned that their natural advantages might not carry as much weight. Later, as the candidates moved to their initial equipment inspection, the young woman Maya had noticed approached her hesitantly. "Instructor Kincaid," she began. "I read about what happened at the Richardson embassy. They're calling it the most successful rescue in military history." Maya smiled slightly. "The media tends to exaggerate. But it's true that you were removed from the program before the rescue, that you failed the standard evaluations?" "I didn't meet the time requirements," Maya corrected. But as it turned out, time wasn't the most important factor in that particular mission. The candidate nodded thoughtfully. "I've always been methodical, thorough rather than fast. My previous instructors said I was too cautious, that I'd never make it in special operations." Maya recognized the doubt in the young woman's voice, the same doubt she had carried after her own removal from the program. "What's your name?" "Candidate Lynn, ma'am. Sarah Lynn." "Well, Candidate Lynn, caution becomes a problem when it paralyzes you into inaction. But thoroughness, real, methodical attention to detail, that's a strength that saves lives when conditions turn chaotic. The trick is knowing when to apply it and when to move with urgency." Lynn's expression brightened slightly. "So I might have a place here after all." "That depends entirely on you," Maya replied. "But yes, in this version of the program, your natural approach has value, provided you also learn when speed is necessary." As Lynn rejoined her fellow candidates, Maya felt a sense of completion. The program was changing, becoming more balanced, more reflective of the complex realities faced in actual rescue operations. Her failure had ultimately led to improvement, not just for herself, but for the entire system. Admiral Chun visited Blackwater that afternoon for a formal review of the changes implemented since Kazakhstan. She found Maya observing the candidate's first practical exercise, a scenario designed to test their baseline tendencies towards speed or thoroughness. Impressive modifications to the program, Specialist Kincaid, Chun noted as they watched. The candidates navigate the challenges. Or should I say Senior Instructor Kincaid now? The title still feels strange, Maya admitted. 3 months ago, I was the washout working in the basement. And now you're reshaping how we train our most elite rescue operators, Chun observed. That's quite a reversal of fortune. They watched as candidate Lin methodically assessed a complex scenario, taking slightly longer than her peers, but identifying critical details they had missed in their rush to complete the exercise. She reminds me of you, Chun noted. She has potential, Maya agreed. In the old program, she would have been eliminated in the first week. Now she has the chance to develop her natural strengths while improving in other areas. Chun nodded approvingly. That's exactly the balance we need. The Richardson Embassy rescue has become a case study at the highest levels of command. Your approach saved lives when standard methods failed, but more importantly, it revealed fundamental flaws in how we've been training operators. The real test will come when these candidates face actual crisis situations, Maya noted. That's when we'll see if the balanced approach produces better results. Based on early indicators, I'm optimistic, Chun replied. The modified training protocols you've developed are already being adopted by other special operations programs. Your failure may end up saving more lives than most operators' successes. The observation struck Maya deeply. Her removal from the program had seemed like the end of her ambitions, a devastating setback that invalidated years of dedicated service. Yet that very failure had positioned her to make changes that would impact rescue operations for years too. That evening, Maya visited the memorial wall where the names of operators lost in failed missions were engraved. Among them were the team members who had died in Cairo, Manila, and Venezuela, casualties of an approach that prioritized speed over security, rapid movement over thorough assessment. Their sacrifice matters, came a voice behind her. Maya turned to find Reynolds standing there, his usual bravado replaced by quiet reflection. Yes, it does, she agreed. That's why we're changing the program, Reynolds nodded slowly. I resisted at first. Thought you were trying to turn us into cautious bureaucrats instead of decisive operators. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But after Kazakhstan, after seeing how your approach saved those diplomats when mine couldn't, I realized we've been training for the wrong test. Not the wrong test, Maya corrected. Just an incomplete one. Real operations aren't pass-fail based on a stopwatch. They're complex challenges that sometimes require speed, sometimes thoroughness, and always good judgment. That's what I'm trying to learn now, Reynolds admitted. The judgment part. It's harder than just being fast. Maya smiled slightly. That's why we're practicing both approaches. So when the moment comes, you have more tools than just speed. As Reynolds walked away, Maya remained at the memorial wall, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. From rejected candidate to program reformer, from basement analyst to senior instructor, a path that would have been impossible if she had simply conformed to the system's flawed expectations. Her tablet pinned with a message from Rodriguez. Turn on the news. They're talking about Kazakhstan again. Maya opened the newsfeed to find a special report on the Richardson Embassy rescue, now being described as the most successful diplomatic extraction in military history. The reporter was interviewing Ambassador Harlow, who spoke eloquently about the methodical, adaptable approach that had saved her team when standard protocols had failed. The officer who led our extraction understood something fundamental about crisis situations, Harlow was saying. That sometimes the careful, thorough approach is exactly what's needed when conditions turn chaotic. Her attention to detail, knowing alternative routes, understanding structural vulnerabilities, anticipating problems before they emerged. That's what made the difference between success and tragedy. The report cut to military analysts discussing The implications of the rescue for future operations, with one expert noting, "This mission is rewriting the playbook on extraction protocols." It demonstrates that elite operators need both speed and thoroughness, applied with judgment-based on specific conditions rather than rigid adherence to standardized approaches. Maya closed the feed, feeling a complex mixture of pride, vindication, and humility. The failed candidate had ended up changing the entire system, not through rebellion or bitter criticism, but through persistent, methodical documentation of problems and demonstration of a better approach when it mattered most. As she walked back toward the training facility, Maya passed the newly painted motto on the wall: "Right approach, right time, every time." It wasn't as catchy as the old speed-focused slogan, but it reflected a deeper truth about rescue operations and about life itself. The woman they had dismissed as too slow, too careful, too methodical had proven that sometimes those very qualities make the difference between success and failure. Not because speed doesn't matter, but because knowing when to be fast and when to be thorough matters more. Maya Kincaid had failed every combat simulation by the program's narrow metrics. Then she had performed the most successful rescue in military history by applying the very approach that had gotten her removed from the program. In doing so, she hadn't just saved 12 lives, she had transformed an entire system, ensuring that future operators would have the balanced training needed to succeed in the chaotic, unpredictable reality of actual crisis situations. And that, she reflected as she prepared for the next day's training, was worth failing for. 18 months after the Richardson Embassy rescue, Maya stood on the observation deck overlooking Blackwater's most advanced training facility, the Adaptive Response Arena. The 3-story structure represented the culmination of her vision for balanced rescue training, with reconfigurable environments that could shift from straightforward speed challenges to complex, unpredictable scenarios requiring thorough assessment and careful decision-making. Below, the latest class of candidates navigated a particularly demanding exercise, a simulated, high-rise evacuation with multiple complications deliberately introduced mid-scenario. Maya watched with professional satisfaction as the teams adjusted their approaches in real time, some accelerating when conditions permitted, others slowing to assess new threats when they emerged. "Quite a change from the old days," observed Rodriguez, who had joined Maya at the railing. Now the facility's deputy commander for training methodology, Rodriguez had been Maya's steadfast ally throughout the program's transformation. "Remember when it was all about who could finish first?" Maya replied, smiling slightly. "Now look at them, actually thinking before they move," Rodriguez chuckled. "Revolutionary concept." The observation deck door opened, and Admiral Chun entered with several high-ranking officers Maya didn't recognize. The group had been touring Blackwater's revamped facilities all morning, evaluating the changes implemented since the Kazakhstan operation. "Senior Instructor Kincaid," Chun greeted her. "Perfect timing. I was just explaining the adaptive response protocols you developed." Maya nodded respectfully to the visiting officers. "Admiral, gentlemen, these are the Joint Chiefs Special Operations Liaisons," Chun explained. "They're here to evaluate the potential application of your training methodology across all special operations branches." The significance of this visit wasn't lost on Maya. What had begun as reforms to a single rescue program at Blackwater could potentially reshape training throughout the military's most elite units. "We've been studying the outcomes from your revised program," said one of the officers, a stern-looking general with intelligence branch insignia. "Particularly the Jakarta incident 3 months ago." Maya knew immediately what he was referencing. A team of Blackwater graduates had successfully extracted a captured intelligence officer from a hostile compound in Indonesia. The operation had required both rapid action during the initial phase and methodical, careful movement during extraction, exactly the balanced approach Maya had been teaching. "The team leader credited your training protocol specifically," the general continued. Said the old speed-focused approach would have gotten them killed when the situation changed unexpectedly. That's consistent with our findings across multiple deployments, Maya confirmed. Graduates from the revised program show 87% higher adaptation rates when facing unforeseen complications. Most importantly, civilian and operator casualty rates have dropped to near zero. The visiting officers exchanged significant glances. These weren't just impressive statistics. They represented lives saved, missions accomplished where they might previously have failed. "Show us how it works," requested another officer, gesturing toward the training exercise below. Maya led them to the control station, where operators monitored the scenario in progress. Multiple screens displayed different teams navigating the high-rise simulation, their biometric data streaming alongside performance metrics. The key innovation isn't technological, Maya explained. It's philosophical. Instead of training operators to execute a single approach at maximum speed, we train them to select the right approach based on actual conditions and to transition between methodologies as those conditions change. She indicated one team on the monitors, led by candidate Lynn, now in her final phase of training and performing exceptionally well. Watch this team. They began with rapid movement through the first 3 floors, which presented straightforward extraction challenges. But when they encountered the structural damage on level 4, they immediately downshifted to a more methodical approach. The officers watched as Lynn's team carefully assessed the simulated structural damage, identified a safe passage that other teams had missed in their haste, and proceeded with deliberate caution until they reached a more stable area. In the old program, they would have been penalized for that slowdown, Maya explained. Now they're evaluated on appropriate decision-making. Speed when speed is called for, thoroughness when conditions demand it. The general nodded approvingly. And the results speak for themselves. Your graduates have the highest mission success rates across all special operations branches. After the tour concluded and the visitors departed, Admiral Chun remained behind. With Maya, they're impressed, Chun informed her. The Joint Chiefs are considering implementing your methodology as the new standard for all special operations training. Maya absorbed this news with a complex mixture of pride and humility. It's not just my methodology, Admiral. It's the result of collaboration with Rodriguez, Harper, Ethan Reynolds. We all contributed different perspectives. Chun smiled slightly. Spoken like someone who truly understands the value of balanced approaches. But make no mistake, Kincaid. This began with your analysis, your persistence when everyone else dismissed your concerns, and your performance in Kazakhstan when it mattered most. Before Maya could respond, her tactical tablet alerted with a priority notification. She checked the screen, her expression immediately shifting to focused concentration. Admiral, we have a situation developing in Singapore. Hostage scenario. Westlake Tower, approximately 40 civilians trapped on the upper floors. Local authorities are requesting specialized assistance. Chun's expression mirrored Maya's focus. Time frame? Developing now. Initial reports indicate a coordinated attack by an extremist cell. They've disabled primary access routes and are threatening to execute hostages if demands aren't met within 4 hours. Chun made an immediate decision. Activate response. Protocols. I want our best team on this. Reynolds is leading our primary response team this month, Maya noted. His group specializes in rapid intervention. And for the secondary team, Maya didn't hesitate. Harper's team for methodical extraction. And I recommend Lieutenant Lynn's team as well. They've shown exceptional adaptive capacity and training. Your call, Senior Instructor, Chun affirmed. You know their capabilities better than anyone. Within an hour, the Blackwater Operations Center had transformed into a command hub for the Singapore response. Large screens displayed building schematics, thermal imaging of the tower, and live intelligence feeds from local authorities. Reynolds, Harper and Lynn had been briefed, and their teams were preparing for rapid deployment. Maya worked with Rodriguez to develop preliminary response options, applying the balanced methodology that had proven so effective since Kazakhstan. Rather than committing to a single approach, they prepared multiple scenarios ranging from high-speed intervention to methodical stealth extraction. The situation has additional complications, Maya informed the team leaders during their final briefing. Westlake Tower has a unique structural design with integrated garden terraces every 10 floors. These create both challenges and opportunities for access. Additionally, the building's security systems are still partially operational, which means we can potentially use them to track hostile movement. Reynolds, now a major and the facility's most experienced rapid response leader, studied the schematics with professional intensity. In the 18 months since Kazakhstan, he had embraced the balanced methodology, integrating thoroughness into his naturally speed-focused approach. Primary access points are compromised, he noted, but these maintenance shafts might provide alternative entry, high-risk, high-speed approach. Harper, who had become Blackwater's specialist in methodical extraction, identified different options. The garden terraces could provide cover for a more gradual infiltration. Lower initial speed, but potentially higher security for the hostages during extraction. Lynn, the youngest team leader but already showing remarkable promise, suggested a third alternative. What about a combined approach? Reynolds' team creates a high-visibility distraction at the main access point, while Harper's team uses the methodical terrace approach. Meanwhile, my team infiltrates through the maintenance shafts to secure the hostages before either group engages directly. Maya nodded approvingly. This was exactly the kind of adaptive thinking the new program had been designed to develop, not rigid adherence to either speed or thoroughness, but thoughtful integration of both based on specific mission requirements. All three approaches have merit, she acknowledged. The question is which best addresses the actual conditions we're facing. They turned to the intelligence feeds, analyzing the hostage locations, hostile positions, and structural vulnerabilities of the tower. Unlike the old days, when a single approach would have been selected based primarily on speed considerations, they now evaluated multiple factors to determine the optimal strategy. After thorough assessment, they settled on a modified version of Lynn's proposal. Reynolds would create a diversion, Harper would secure extraction routes through the terraces, and Lynn would lead the actual hostage recovery. The plan balanced speed, security, and adaptability, a perfect embodiment of the new methodology. As the teams made final preparations, Maya received an unexpected call from Admiral Chun. "Kincaid, I need you on this operation." The request caught Maya off guard. As senior instructor, she typically remained at the command center during operations, providing strategic oversight rather than participating directly. "Admiral, the Singaporean Prime Minister's daughter is among the hostages," Chen explained. "This just became a diplomatic situation as well as a tactical one. I need someone who understands both aspects on the ground." Maya processed this new information quickly. "What role do you envision for me, Admiral?" "Join Lynn's team as mission coordinator. Your experience with the Richardson Embassy rescue makes you uniquely qualified for the diplomatic dimensions of this extraction." The parallel wasn't lost on Maya. Once again, a high-profile rescue with international implications. Once again, lives hanging in the balance. But this time, she wouldn't be the washout unexpectedly thrust into action. She would be there by design, bringing her unique perspective to a team already trained in balanced methodology. "Understood, Admiral. I'll gear up immediately." As Maya prepared in the equipment room, selecting standard gear augmented with specialized communication devices, Reynolds approached her. "Just like old times," he observed with a slight smile. "Except now you're not the outsider." Maya checked her tactical vest, ensuring everything was properly secured. The differences were not working against each other anymore. Your team, Harper's team, Lynn's team, were all applying different aspects of the same balanced approach. Reynolds nodded, his expression serious. I was wrong about you, Kincaid. We all were. The program was wrong. The program wasn't wrong, Maya corrected him. It was incomplete. Speed matters, you taught me that. But thoroughness matters too. The trick is knowing which to apply when. They clasped hands briefly before heading to separate transports. The gesture contained volumes, respect, shared purpose, acknowledgement of how far they'd come from the days of basic trainer, mockery, and rigid adherence to flawed metrics. The flight to Singapore took 12 hours, time Maya used to study everything available about Westlake Tower and the developing hostage situation. Unlike the rushed deployments of the old methodology, this extended preparation time was now considered valuable, allowing teams to develop deeper understanding before engagement. Maya sat beside Lynn, who was reviewing building schematics with focused intensity. The young lieutenant had blossomed under the balanced training approach, her natural thoroughness complemented by newly developed speed skills when situations demanded them. Nervous? Maya asked quietly. Lynn looked up from her tablet. Focused, she corrected. This is what we've trained for, adapting to complex, unpredictable situations rather than just racing through predetermined scenarios. Maya nodded approvingly. What's your assessment of the primary challenges? Without hesitation, Lynn identified the critical factors. Hostage distribution across 3 floors complicates simultaneous extraction. Hostile forces have established checkpoints at standard access points. Building security systems are partially compromised but could potentially be turned to our advantage. And your planned response? Lynn outlined a nuanced approach that balanced speed and thoroughness exactly as the situation demanded. Initial infiltration through maintenance shafts requires careful movement to avoid detection. Once we've secured the hostages, we'll need to move rapidly during the extraction phase when Reynolds creates his diversion. The transition between methodologies will be the most challenging aspect. Maya couldn't help feeling a surge of pride. This was precisely the kind of adaptive thinking the reformed program had been designed to develop. Operators who could think critically about when to move fast and when to move carefully, rather than defaulting to a single approach regardless of conditions. You've come a long way from the candidate who thought she was too methodical for special operations, Maya observed. Lynn smiled slightly. I had a good example of how thoroughness saves lives when it matters most. Upon arrival in Singapore, the teams established a forward operations base in a secure facility provided by local authorities. The latest intelligence confirmed the situation had stabilized temporarily. The extremists were still negotiating. The hostages remained unharmed, and the 4-hour deadline had been extended. Maya joined the final tactical briefing, where Reynolds, Harper, and Lynn confirmed their coordinated plan. Each team had a distinct role that played to their particular strengths, but all 3 understood how their parts interconnected to form a cohesive operation. Remember, Maya emphasized as the briefing concluded, this isn't about which approach is best in absolute terms. It's about applying the right approach at the right time as conditions evolve. Be prepared to shift methodologies if the situation changes unexpectedly. As the teams moved to their staging positions, Maya received a private call from Admiral Chun. Kincaid, there's an additional complication. Intelligence suggests there may be an insider among the local security forces, coordinating with the hostage takers. This new information changed the risk profile significantly. If true, it meant their tactical plans might be compromised before they even began. How reliable is this intelligence? Maya asked. Credible but unconfirmed, Chun replied. Proceed with the operation, but maintain heightened security protocols. Trust no one outside our own teams. Maya acknowledged the order and discreetly informed the team leaders of this new complication. Each adjusted their approach accordingly, adding additional verification steps and reducing their reliance on local security resources. As darkness fell over Singapore, the operation commenced. Reynolds' team began their diversionary approach. At the main entrance, creating a visible security response that drew attention away from the other teams. Harper's group moved methodically through the garden terraces, securing extraction routes and establishing medical staging areas for the hostages once recovered. Maya accompanied Lin's team as they accessed the maintenance shafts that would lead them to the hostage locations. The narrow passages required slow, careful movement to avoid detection, exactly the kind of scenario where Lin's natural thoroughness proved invaluable. "Heat signatures ahead," whispered the team's point operator, checking a thermal imaging device. 2 hostiles guarding the shaft exit. Lin made a quick assessment. "We need them neutralized simultaneously and silently. Morgan, Chun, you take the lead." The 2 operators moved forward with practiced precision, coordinating their approach through hand signals. In moments, both guards had been subdued without raising an alarm, a perfect example of methodical execution when the situation demanded it. With the exit secured, Lin's team accessed the first hostage location, a corporate boardroom where 15 civilians were being held by 3 armed extremists. Through fiber optic cameras inserted beneath the door, they assessed the situation carefully before planning their entry. "Hostiles are separated," Lin observed. 1 by the window, 2 by the main door. Hostages clustered in the center. Clean entry possible with simultaneous neutralization. Maya confirmed the assessment. This was a scenario where speed would be the appropriate approach once the decision to move was made. "Proceed when ready, Lieutenant." Lin gave the signal, and her team breached the room with explosive efficiency. Within 6 seconds, all 3 hostiles had been neutralized without a single shot fired, using targeted non-lethal approaches that ensured hostage safety. As they secured the first group of civilians, Maya identified a young woman who matched the description of the Prime Minister's daughter. She approached carefully, aware of the diplomatic dimensions of this particular rescue. "Ms. Lim? I'm Specialist Kincaid. We're here to get you out safely." The young woman looked up with relief evident in her eyes. "Thank you." "The others, there are more hostages on the floors above." "We know," Maya assured her. "Other teams are already moving to secure them." As they prepared the first group for extraction, Maya's tactical communication device alerted with an urgent message from Reynolds. "Kincaid, we have a problem. Local security forces are behaving erratically. Possible confirmation of insider threat. Harper's extraction route may be compromised." This was the kind of mid-operation complication that the old methodology had never adequately prepared for. A fundamental change in conditions requiring immediate adaptation of approach. Maya conferred quickly with Lin. "We need to adjust," she decided. "Harper's terrace route is no longer secure. We'll need to extract all hostages through the maintenance shafts." Lin immediately recognized the implications. "That's a much narrower route. We'll need to move more slowly, especially with civilians." "Exactly," Maya confirmed. "We're shifting from a balanced approach to a thoroughly methodical one. Speed is now secondary to security." She contacted Harper, who immediately adjusted her team's position to provide additional security around the maintenance shaft exits. Reynolds modified his diversionary tactics to draw attention even further from Lin's extraction route. The seamless adaptation demonstrated exactly what the reformed program had been designed to develop: operators who could shift approaches based on changing conditions, rather than stubbornly adhering to a single methodology. As Lin's team secured the remaining hostages from the upper floors, Maya coordinated the methodical extraction through the maintenance shafts. The process was slower than originally planned, but vastly more secure given the new threat from compromised local forces. "This is why we train for adaptability," Maya told a visibly anxious hostage as they navigated the narrow passage. Sometimes the fastest route becomes the most dangerous one. 6 hours after the operation began, all 43 hostages had been successfully extracted without casualties. The Prime Minister's daughter was safely returned to Singaporean authorities, creating an immediate positive diplomatic impact. Reynolds' diversionary tactics had successfully occupied the extremists until special forces could neutralize them. And Harper's team had identified the security insider who had been coordinating with the hostage-takers. At the debriefing in the secure facility, the Singaporean defense minister personally thanked the Blackwater teams for their exceptional work. Your ability to adapt when our own security was compromised saved many lives today. Most impressive was how you shifted approaches mid-operation without losing cohesion. Maya deferred to the team leaders, acknowledging their exceptional execution. This wasn't about a single methodology or approach. It was about having multiple tools available, and the judgment to know which to apply as conditions evolved. Later, as the teams prepared for return transport, Lynn approached Maya privately. "The program you created made this possible," she said simply. 18 months ago, we would have stuck to a single approach regardless of changing conditions. People would have died today. Maya considered this acknowledgement with a sense of quiet fulfillment. The failed candidate who had once been mockingly called basic trainer had fundamentally transformed how elite operators approached rescue missions. More importantly, she had created a legacy that would continue saving lives long after her own career ended. "It wasn't just me," Maya replied. "It took Reynolds recognizing the limitations of pure speed, Harper demonstrating the value of methodical execution, Rodriguez supporting data-driven analysis when everyone else dismissed it, and Admiral Chun having the courage to change an established system. And it took candidates like you, willing to develop balanced skills rather than relying solely on natural tendencies." Lynn nodded thoughtfully. Still, someone had to fail first, to show that. The metrics were measuring the wrong things. "Sometimes," Maya acknowledged, "the most valuable contribution you can make is to fail in the right way, to fail because you're holding to principles that matter more than arbitrary standards." Upon their return to Blackwater, the Singapore operation was immediately incorporated into the training curriculum as a case study in adaptive methodology. Video footage showed how the teams had shifted from their original balanced approach to a more thoroughly methodical one when conditions changed, saving lives that might have been lost under rigid adherence to a single methodology. Admiral Chun called Maya to her office a week after their return. "The Joint Chiefs have made their decision," she announced without preamble. "Your adaptive methodology is being implemented across all special operations training programs, effective immediately." The news was momentous, a complete validation of everything Maya had fought for since her removal from the program all those months ago. "There's more," Chun continued. "They're establishing a new Special Operations Methodology Command to oversee the implementation. They want you to lead it, Kincaid. Full colonel rank, effective immediately." Maya sat in stunned silence. From rejected candidate to program reformer to command leadership, it was a journey she could never have imagined when she'd received those reassignment orders to the simulation center. "That's unexpected, Admiral." Chun smiled slightly. "Is it? You've proven something fundamental about how we train elite operators. You've demonstrated that true excellence comes not from rigid adherence to a single approach, but from the judgment to adapt methodologies as conditions demand. More importantly, you've saved lives that would have been lost under the old system." As Maya left Chun's office, she passed the training hall where a new class of candidates was gathering for their first day at Blackwater. Above them, the motto she had helped create still hung prominently: "Right approach, right time, every time." But beside it now was a new addition, a simple plaque that read, "The Kincaid Methodology, because success isn't measured by a stopwatch. but by lives saved when standard approaches fail. The woman who had failed every combat simulation by the program's narrow metrics had ended up performing the most successful rescue in military history. In doing so, she hadn't just saved 12 lives at the Richardson Embassy, she had transformed an entire approach to special operations, creating a legacy that would continue saving lives for generations to come. Maya watched the new candidates for a moment, noting their mixture of speed-focused confidence and methodical thoroughness. Unlike her class, they wouldn't be forced to choose between approaches. They would learn to value both, to develop the judgment that determines which to apply in each unique situation. That, she reflected as she continued toward her new office, was worth failing for. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.